As recognized members of scheduled tribes, we are beneficiaries of affirmative action. However, the social casteist system, the prevailing mindset, it impacts our everyday relationships with non-Adivasis and makes it difficult for us to find acceptance in the workplace and in school. Political challenges. Adivasis have long struggled for a political voice at the national level. Even today, as a strong collective of nearly 100 million people, we do not have any leaders at the national level with national influence and appeal. We have found some degree of success at the regional level. However, many of our problems related to regulations still remain. One of them would be the problem of land and forest rights. In 2006, the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Act was passed. As traditional forest dwellers, we are now legally entitled to the resources from the forest floor, which had been denied to us for decades since the British. However, the implementation of this act has been far from perfect, and we are still susceptible to harassment, eviction, extortion of money, and sexual molestation by forest officials. And finally, I want to address our geography. Indigenous people the world over, we seem to have a knack for settling down in lands which are rich with minerals and forest produce and timber and other resources which the developing world wants. As development has taken place, we have had to pay the price. Every time a dam has been built, a mine has been mined, a factory has been set up, our home, our land has been taken away from us. 40% of India's minerals, including our uranium reserves, are found in my state, Jharkhand. Since 1951, 60 million people have been displaced in India because of development projects. 24 million of them were Adivasis. We have not received any compensation, any rehabilitation. And without our land, our forests, our water, our rivers, we do not have any other means of livelihoods. With so many issues that plague our daily lives, basic survival is in question for many Adivasis. Growing dissent has caused some to protest against the government using violent means. India's largest internal security threat, Naxalism, feeds on the grievances of the people she has let down. Your support will assist us in our journey to find solutions. In closing, I would like to say that India's Adivasis, who come from 600 different tribes, are a people rich in their knowledge of the natural world. We know the magic of plants and their medicinal properties. We belong to our land. It is the source of our science, our technology, our way of life, our religion and culture. It is the essence of our existence. As we approach a 9 billion people world, which will be plagued with food insecurity, climate change, and rising levels of pollution, the world can learn how to live in harmony with nature from Indigenous people. Thank you. Johar.
Thank you very much. Ms. Quigley?
Thank you, Co-Chair McGovern, for holding this hearing today. For decades, the Rohingya people have been victims of systematic and widespread human rights violations at the hands of Burma's military junta. In a recent report released by the Irish Center for Human Rights, an expert on international human rights law, claimed that these mass atrocities perpetrated by Burma's military regime against the Rohingya minority in the country's western region may constitute crimes against humanity. Overlooked for years, their plight and the root causes of their dire situation remain under-examined. The Rohingya are a Muslim ethnic minority living in northern Arakan State in western Burma. They face religious and ethnic discrimination at the hands of Burma's military regime, which does not recognize the Rohingya as citizens of Burma. The regime does not consider the Rohingya people as one of the 135 legally recognized ethnic minority groups in Burma, leaving the Rohingya stateless, homeless, and rightsless. To this day, Burma's military regime maintains that the Rohingya immigrated to Burma from India while under British colonial rule, omitting their earlier arrivals and settlements in the region. Today, the Rohingya Muslims constitute 1/3 of the total population of Arakan State, where their population number is around 725,000. The remaining majority population in the state are Buddhist Arakanese. In 1978, the Burmese army launched a military offensive called Dragon King to root out these so-called foreigners. Hundreds were arrested, tortured, raped, and killed. In the following months of the military operation, over 300,000 Rohingya fled to Bangladesh. The Bangladeshi government refused to provide food supplies and other necessities to the Rohingya refugees, leaving many of them to die from starvation and disease. Again, in 1991, the Burmese army launched another military operation to drive out more Rohingya from Burma. More than 268,000 Rohingya fled to Bangladesh. The Bangladeshi government again forcibly repatriated them back into Burma, over 60% of them back into Burma, with full knowledge of their heightened vulnerability to persecution, discrimination, and insecurity. The Rohingya are denied fundamental human rights and freedoms, and the military regime to this day continues to perpetrate human rights violations against this vulnerable population. The regime refuses to issue identification cards to the Rohingya, which is necessary to be able to travel, as well as to obtain passports and enroll in higher education. They are denied land ownership and property rights. The land on which they live can be taken away at any given time. Furthermore, they must seek permission to marry, a process that may take months or years and may involve considerable bribes and requirements to renounce their religion. Moreover, restrictions on movement can prevent the Rohingya from accessing healthcare and education or from working. In many cases, the Rohingya are denied healthcare or required to pay arbitrary fees. In addition, their non-legal status makes it extremely difficult for the Rohingya to find employment. Acute and chronic malnutrition is rife among the Rohingya minority. Furthermore, the Rohingya are victims of modern-day slavery and are used for various forms of forced labor. These people are forced to work without pay on construction sites for roads, railways, as well as building army barracks. Because they are forced into these construction projects with no compensation, they cannot generate any income to feed themselves or their families. Land confiscation has become a common practice as the regime forcibly evicts the Rohingya from their land in preparation for development projects such as oil or gas pipelines and hydropower plants. Among several development projects in the region, the regime is building the Shui gas pipeline through Arakan State for the benefit of the Chinese government. It is likely the Rohingya will be further subjected to increased human rights abuses upon the beginning of this construction project. As if their home government doesn't treat them badly enough, the Rohingya do not find welcome in other countries where they seek refuge. Hundreds of thousands of Rohingya have fled to Bangladesh, Thailand, and Malaysia to escape persecution and adversity, only to fall into even greater trials. Currently, over 30,000 Rohingya live in squalid refugee camps in Bangladesh where they are denied access to food supplies, medical aid, and education. Those in the camps are recognized as refugees and benefit from the meager protection from the UNHCR. However, it is estimated up to 200,000 live in deplorable conditions outside the official refugee camp in Bangladesh as illegal immigrants and unofficial refugees in a makeshift camp. In recent months, both the official and unofficial Rohingya refugee camps have been subject to violent attacks, further jeopardizing their safety. Many Rohingya have also fled to Thailand and Malaysia with the hope of finding refuge in a life beyond misery and poverty. However, they are subjected to dehumanizing treatment by both Thai and Malaysian authorities. In December 2009, it was widely reported that Thai officials towed a boat of Rohingya refugees back into international waters in a motorless barge where they were left to the mercy of the sea. The plight of the Rohingya will continue in its miserable state until Burma is willing to recognize them as citizens. There needs to be greater international attention to also address the immediate humanitarian needs they face in each country in which they reside. The United States should work with ASEAN and other regional powers to urge the Burmese regime to immediately amend or repeal the 1982 citizenship law with the effect of granting citizenship and accompanying rights to the Rohingya and Rakhine State, to issue birth certificates to all Rohingya born in Burma in compliance with domestic and international law, to take immediate steps to eradicate all discriminatory policies and practices against the Rohingya population, including restriction of movement, freedom to marry, and arbitrary detention, and to eliminate forced labor and other coercive measures. The United States should work with governments in the region who receive Rohingya refugees to provide them with adequate protection, humanitarian assistance, and other basic services, and work with the Bangladeshi government and UNHCR to register undocumented Rohingya refugees in order to strengthen protection and humanitarian assistance and reduce sexual and gender-based violence against refugees. Provide more humanitarian assistance and urge the Bangladesh government to allow more access for humanitarian assistance organizations into Kutu Palang, the unofficial refugee camp, and develop a large-scale needs-based assistance program to assist impoverished local communities hosting Rohingya refugees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sering.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm thankful to the Commission for this opportunity to represent the indigenous people of Gilgit Baltistan, which is a UN-declared disputed territory under Pakistan's control. The worsening human rights situation of the indigenous people in Gilgit Baltistan is a serious cause of concern, and effective protection and promotion of their rights is urgently required. Gilgit Baltistan is home to more than 1 million people who belong to Balti, Sheen, Burushu, Khwar, and Wakhi ethnicity. They consider themselves different from predominant Pakistani groups and share strong cultural links with the Tibetans, Kashmiris, Tajiks, Uyghurs, and Mongols. The region is situated at the confluence of Central Asia, China, and South Asia, and greatly helps China with access to the markets and energy strongholds in the Middle East and the Indian Oceanic region. Gilgit Baltistan is a resource-rich region where uranium, copper, and gold are found in abundance, and glaciated water bodies cover a catchment area equal to the size of South Carolina. Pakistan and China's vested strategic and economic interest in Gilgit Baltistan restrict the natives from benefiting from their own resources. Pakistan's unilateral decision to award mining licenses to the Chinese companies has endangered control of the natives over their land. Despite repeated local demands, Islamabad has failed to transfer legislative authority over trade and transit and resource management to the indigenous political institutions, which limits access to revenue worth millions of dollars. Pakistan also denies natives the royalty and usage compensation over the rivers, which the Pakistani provinces currently receive on an annual basis. The disputed region remains in tight control of Pakistan's notorious Secret Service agency, ISI, and the situation forces the majority among the natives to remain silent and tolerate the oppression. As of now, more than 180 activists remain behind bars for demanding political and religious rights, and many face sedition charges for confronting Chinese and Pakistanis. Given the fact that more than half of the native population live below the poverty line, majority of the valleys still lack basic facilities like clean drinking water, school and health centers, and more than 300,000 educated youth remain jobless. It is vital for the natives to regain control over their land and benefit from the resources to enhance living standards. According to the media sources, China would invest more than $30 billion in Gilgit Baltistan to construct large water storage dams, which will displace hundreds of thousands of people and damage their link with their ancestral land. The situation will change social demography, impacting indigenous languages, traditions, and other traits of culture. It will also prevent the natives from accessing their resources like pastures, irrigation outlets, forests, and minerals. The situation undermines regional security and creates environmental problems of great magnitude. Without the consent of the natives, who are mostly Shias, Ismailis, and Sufis by religious denomination, Pakistani Secret Service agents use Gilgit Baltistan as a hideout and launch pad for the extremist terrorists who actively support Pakistan's Talibanization. On many occasions, natives clash with these rogue elements but fail to oust them due to pressure from Secret Service agencies. In addition, native students of Gilgit Baltistan are forced to learn religious courses which contradict local secular traditions, lack regard for the local history, and actively promote jihad and terrorism. The situation seriously undermines promotion of indigenous cultural beliefs and national identity. The situation in which thousands of Chinese personnel have assumed de facto control of the region poses serious political threats both for the natives and the international community. China's presence in Gilgit Baltistan complicates the Kashmir issue and prolongs the dispute between India and Pakistan, which is like oxygen to the terrorist and rogue elements within ISI. The situation could lead to a potential war between three nuclear nations, creating political and economic instability at the global scale. Many among locals fear that Gilgit Baltistan would end up like Tibet and East Turkestan if China's unwarranted interventions are not challenged. They emphasize that since both Pakistan and China lack constitutional rights and sovereignty over Gilgit Baltistan, therefore international community must help in withdrawal of Pakistani and Chinese personnel and citizens from the region. Protecting indigenous peoples' land rights serves U.S. interest in cost-effective conservation, mitigation of climate change, and global food security. The U.S. should help prevent human rights violation caused due to these massive-scale land grabs which pose threats to local livelihoods. It is once again stressed that social and cultural well-being of the indigenous peoples of Gilgit Baltistan coincides with U.S. national economic and security interests. At the same time, USA must persuade both India and Pakistan to open channels of economic and cultural activity between Ladakh and Gilgit Baltistan and enable the United Nations to increase its role in Gilgit Baltistan to protect the rights of the natives. The Institute believes that substantial decrease in Pakistani influence in Gilgit Baltistan will allow promotion of indigenous cultures and help neutralize extremism and Arab tribal influences that have been forced upon the natives in the name of Islamic values.